Happy Thursday, everybody. Schuyler Callihan here with Mountaineers Now. It is the Walkthrough Game Day show, and join with me, as always, former West Virginia running back, the great, the one and only Eugene Napoleon. Gene, how you feeling, brother? Are you feeling much better now?
No, but I'm here.
Right.
I'm here. Yes, I'm only kidding. I feel good. Looking forward to a victory. So I guess I'm feeling good going into this week.
Yeah, we'll see. West Virginia was 13.5-point favorites last week against Kansas. They lose 55-42 in overtime. I don't even know what to say about this game. We've talked about it a lot, but we're going to talk a little bit about it today again because there's not much to really talk about with Towson. So the last few days, we've spent a lot of time talking about Neil Brown and the direction of this program, if he is the right head coach for this team or not. Let's get into what this team has looked like and what it can turn itself into maybe as the season goes. So offensively, I don't think there's a problem, right? JT Daniels has looked fantastic. He's looked as good as advertised, maybe even a little better. And the running game's been going fairly strong with Tony Mathis, CJ Donaldson. Bryce Ford-Wheaton looks like one of the top receivers in the Big 12, flanked by Caden Prather as well. Offensive lines looked okay at times, but it's been the defense that's been the big question mark and has been the thing that's held this team back through 2 weeks. What has been your overall take of this team through 2 weeks, both sides of the ball?
I think I'll start with the defense first. They looked phenomenal against Pittsburgh. They played lights out. And I was thinking that if our defense shows up that way, in even through we had a real big things defensively. Then offensively, looking at what we did against Pittsburgh, again, I was really that small, preview of what I thought I would see. I got a chance to see. Felt like, wow, this is going to be magnificent. And then you go into the Kansas week, and then that happens. And the defense, for some odd reason, at all. Offensively, we didn't look good at all. Special teams, at times we look good, at times we didn't. So I'm looking at just, a 2-week, perspective and view of it. And I'm saying it looks like we're in trouble, Schuyler, because it looks like we are a team with no real destiny. It looks like we're a team that doesn't really have an identity. At one point, I thought that years back, let's go get the quarterback, sick 'em. Because against Pitt, they were coming. You understand? And against a real formidable offensive line. And then conversely, Pitt's defensive line is pretty damn good. It is what it is. And I felt we played well enough in spurts in that game to win. So it gave me some optimism. And then again, you get into the Kansas game, and it looked like we took 4 steps back on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
So a little bit confused as to what is it? Who are we going to be? Are we going to be a team that can run the ball, which opens up the passing game? Are we going to be a team that has to pass the ball, then hopefully open up the running game? Are we going to be a team that needs to get a little bit tougher up front to punch you in the mouth in 4th and 1? Sorry. Defensively, are we going to be the type of team that can play man-to-man on the outside? Because I felt the corners against Pitt looked pretty doggone good, and I felt that was a strength. Now I'm looking at it, and it seems to be somewhat of a weakness. I don't know. It's a little bit scary. So I'm hoping, and I can't say this in good consciousness. Let me be honest. I can't say against Towson that all is going to be made well, because it sounds so disrespectful to say this, but because it's Towson.
Yeah.
All is supposed to be made well against Towson. Virginia Tech, I know I'm getting ahead of myself, is going to be a different ball game. Texas, I know I'm getting ahead of myself, is going to be even more of a different ball game. So I'm a little bit worried, I'll use that, going into the next few weeks of this season because of the inconsistent play, both offensively and defensively, and on the special teams as we move into the season. I'm a little bit worried about what we're going to look like.
Yeah, I mean, when you look one way against Pitt and you come back the next week and look completely different against Kansas, I think that's alarming first and foremost. And I think we all were kind of questioning, how does West Virginia pick themselves up off the mat after losing in the fashion that they did in Pittsburgh? Do they come back and, they're ready to go and ready to kick Kansas in the teeth, or do they come out a little sluggish and kind of a little lethargic because it's Kansas? And I don't know offensively if that was the problem. Defensively, that was certainly the case, I thought, because I mean, body language was terrible. There was a lot of back and forth and stuff like that. But did you see or did you sense any lack of focus in this game against Kansas?
Absolutely. I mean, body language tells me a lot, and you can see that. And you could also see it's almost like, from a discipline standpoint, we played with no urgency.
Mm-hmm.
And we played with a severe lack of discipline. And that's where you get in trouble when you lose football games against teams that may not even be caliber wise or in your caliber of the type of teams that you would think would give you that type of a problem. Matchup wise, I felt there was no way matchup wise that we would lose any matchup against Kansas, but yet we did.
Yeah.
But they flat out outplayed us. And then it looks like you flat out got outcoached in certain aspects of the game. And I'm sorry, at this level, that can't be a consistent thing. You can't get outplayed, outcoached, and your team looks as though they're not ready to play. I'm going to share this, and I know people may not like it, but Nealon's era, my years there at WVU, we were never not prepared to play. I'm just going to say it, Matt. Schuyler. Said Matt because a good friend of mine, we were talking about this, and his name was Matt, and he asked me about the Penn State game. He's a big Penn State fan, unfortunately. And we talked about it, and he said, well, it always looks like Penn State was always ready. And I said, well, they wasn't ready when we kicked their can, So that was a big thing, a big football conversation between he and I, and that's the truth. Schuyler, when you look like you're not ready to play because you're not prepared, you can tell that, and you can sense it. The miscues alone tells you that.
And I think the thing is too, like, you can look like that at the beginning of a game and get better. You can fix things, whether it's coaching adjustments, whether it's personnel, whether it's just, something, that just mentally, that just confuses you at the beginning of the game. But when that does not happen, when you don't get those fixes, something's seriously wrong. And I think, again, everyone looks at Kansas as they're the doormat of the Big 12. Well, I hate to say this, Gene, but they just beat West Virginia. So right now, West Virginia is kind of the doormat of the Big 12. I mean, and if you're Neil Brown, I mean, again, I don't want to get into that again, but you're year 4, you cannot be losing games against Kansas. And now you're the perennial doormat of the Big 12, but that's the world that we live in right now. And for this team to get the bowl eligibility, they're going to have to win 6 games. 6 games. I don't know where those 6 games are going to come from. I mean, obviously they should have one this week against the Towson Tigers, but you've got to get 5 league wins, essentially. Well, I guess not if you have Virginia Tech, but you have to get 5 more wins after this weekend. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. Do you think that there's a good chance that West Virginia misses out on a bowl this year?
With you. You know what? I wouldn't have said that before the Kansas week, before the Kansas game. I wouldn't have said that, to be honest with you, even after, the Pitt loss. Now, and this is me, being realistic. You already know I bleed freaking gold and blue. You understand? I love our university. You know that. I love our program. I like Neil Brown. It's not a knock against Neil Brown. We're talking just facts, right? I don't know where you're going to find those wins. I was gung-ho, as I told you, standing on 10-2. That's what I thought the record would be. But looking at where we are, well, they can. Looking at where we are now, with the way that they looked against Kansas in the small sample size against Pitt, it's not enough to now say, where do you find those wins in the Big 12?
Beyond me. I mean,
because everybody, you look at what the Big 12 is doing the last 2 weeks. The teams in the Big 12, let me tell you something, they are balling.
Texas damn near beat Alabama.
And I'm going to tell you something. If the quarterback doesn't get hurt, they would have beat Alabama. That's flat out. They would have beat Alabama. Matter of fact, had he not gotten hurt, they would have beat Alabama handedly. Yeah, that's a problem. Baylor. I didn't think it. Baylor's going to be a problem.
Baylor.
Oklahoma's going to be a problem. Oklahoma State is going to be a problem. I don't know. Iowa State.
Kansas State, yeah. I mean, like literally the list goes on and on and on. And I don't think you can even look at this schedule again outside of Towson. There's
Right.
not one game where West Virginia I would consider as the favorites. I mean, I know everyone has their opinion about the ESPN FBI and we use it all the time, but the ESPN FBI has West Virginia winning one more game this season. That's
Jesus.
it, one game, and that's against Towson. Gene, I don't know. If you go 1-11 with your only win being Towson, I mean that's falling in the category of the Kansases of years past.
Well, you listen. You can't. I think the worst record we've had was under Dana Holgerson in the big. That was the 4-8 year.
Yeah, that if they were to go 1-12, or I guess it'd be 1-11, that would be the worst record I believe since was like 1960, and that second worst record in program history.
And I think, I think you're absolutely right. Now, if and I don't even want to think it, but if that were the case, you could throw the trajectory out the window if that were the case, because I mean, the opposite end of that would be devastating, and it would be very, very hard to build if that's the case. End of the season, you're looking at, you lost 11 football games. I don't even think I can actually say that in good consciousness. I don't think I can say that. I think I'm sleepwalking through that statement. I don't.
I mean, it's so weird to think that West Virginia could be a team that loses 9-10 games. I mean, but I mean, from what we've seen, again, and how good is Kansas? I think that's something that we really still don't know yet, because they played Tennessee Tech in week 1. They played a West Virginia team that maybe lost its focus in week 2. Maybe Kansas is that much improved. Maybe they're a 5 or 6 win team. Maybe West Virginia bounces back. They find a way to win some games they shouldn't, and they're right back in the thick of things of being a Big 12, maybe not contender. I don't want to go that far, but maybe they win 6 or 7 games still. I mean, it's hard to believe that, but I think there's still a lot of season left to be played for us to just sit here and write everything off as this is a terrible year for WVU.
You can't, and I won't. But we're talking, we're talking in a sense where this is realistic conversation based on what we see, right? So if you're speaking open and honestly, and it's a realistic conversation, realistically from what we see, all of what we just said is potentially possible.
Yeah.
Hate to admit that, but that's the one thing that's difficult sitting on this side, of the table. Now you're looking at these games, you're calling these games, you have to analyze these games, you have to break these games down, and then you have to be brutally honest with what your eyes are seeing and not what your heart is feeling.
Yeah, and that's a hard thing. And I think even after the game on Saturday, and I'm starting to write up my Sunday morning thoughts column, and in a way, it's kind of hard to really write those columns Saturday night, because I want to get it out first thing Sunday morning so everyone can read it. But at the same time, you don't have the time to sit there and let what just happened, whether it was a big win, big loss, or in between, kind of marinate. And you don't really think about, okay, the long term of what could happen. You just think of, oh my gosh, this is panic mode right here. So it is kind of hard. But again, like you said, the facts are facts. This is an 0-2 football team right now. They've got a chance to turn it around this Saturday against Towson, FCS opponent. They've got a ton of FBS transfers. So, yes, this should be a game West Virginia wins by multiple scores. But at this point, we don't know about this team, right? I mean, they've looked good. They've looked bad. They've looked a little in between. What are your keys to the game for this week for the Mountaineers?
I think go back to the drawing board. Obviously, I'm not going to. What I will never do is sit here and talk about what I think about individual players, this, that, and the third. I think that these young men bust their hump. They work hard. Nobody in that locker room wants to be 0-2, including the coaching staff. I know that. This week against Towson, you have to go back to the basics, go back to the drawing board, establish the run up front. Your up front offensive line, they have to win the line of scrimmage battle consistently in every freaking series. That gives you some momentum. That gives you some confidence. The backs hit the hole, do what they do. Quarterback, play heady football, play mistake-free football. Let's get to a game where there is no interceptions. Defensively, we got 3-4 sacks to feel really good about ourselves. Maybe get a couple of picks. Special team wise, blow it up, man. Maybe get a block punt. If you don't take one back to the house, kickoff return, but get 2 or 3 really good big returns. Really turn this thing into a collective win where you're starting to click in all phases of the game. I think if you do that, you go into the Virginia Tech week feeling a little bit better about yourself. But you can't do Schuyler's not struggle at all at home against Towson. I do mean, honestly, you know what? This is really, there should be, we shouldn't have to punt the football not one time.
Yeah, and
we should have,
maybe in the fourth quarter when you're up 45.
Right. That should be a goal. That should be written on the whiteboard as a goal. We should not punt the football not one time in this football game. Yeah. Honestly, I just, and I know that sounds harsh. I'm not trying to be mean, but you gotta bow your back somewhere. And if this ain't the week to do it, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I mean, this has got to be the week where you figure things out. Neil Brown actually said in Tuesday's press conference that some of the younger guys are going to get some action this week. Mumu Ben Wahad, Jacoby Spells, Sean Martin may even start at defensive end for West Virginia. So they're going to look at some personnel changes, and rightfully so. After 2 weeks of what has happened, you gotta think they're going to make some changes. So, Gene, it is that time of the show. We're going to get to our DVN pick'ems, my man. We are now heading into week 3. And boy, this was just a bad week for me. I went 1-4 last week. And
what did I do?
You were 2-3. You're 2-3. So you are 1 game up on me right now. You're 6-4. I'm 5-5. And we've got to change that. I've got to get back in the win column and get above you up here in these standings. So let's get to it, my friend. Number 6, Oklahoma at Nebraska. It's an old Big 12 rivalry, even Big 8 rivalry. At noon on Fox. I'm going to go with Oklahoma here. I think this is just too easy of a play. I think, the Sooners kind of fell asleep last week. They were only, if you take that third quarter out where they scored 24 points, they only win 9-3 against Kent State. So it was a very poor showing. Who knows? Nebraska just fired their head coach, Scott Frost. Maybe they're playing a little bit better now. I don't know. I think the game's going to be much closer than what everyone expects, but I'm going to go with Oklahoma.
I agree with you. Hitting on all cylinders. I agree with you. Everything you just said. Sooner Boomer. I just think the Sooners, I just think they have a little bit too much at this point. Yeah, I'm going with Oklahoma.
Future Big 12 opponent, number 12, BYU. They're coming off a win over our future rival in Baylor. They're going to number 25, Oregon, 3:30 on Fox. I don't know how BYU responds here, Gene. I think this is a tough one because, again, you went to double overtime last week against Baylor. They kind of had to feel like they were trying to prove themselves against the Big 12. They got a big win. Playing in Autzen Stadium out in Eugene is tough. But I think I'm going to go with the Cougars here.
Listen, I picked BYU because they play sound football. And when they're getting it all right, it's tough to beat them. I don't care where they play at. So I'm going with the Cougars as well.
Penn State, number 22 at Auburn, 3:30 CBS. This is an interesting game. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of points scored in this one. I don't know if I have much confidence in Sean Clifford to get the job done. But I'm going to rely on that Penn State defense. I think James Franklin is going to be a better coach than Harsin in this one. So I'm going to lean Penn State, but I'm not confident.
I had picked in my head Auburn, but for some reason I'm gonna switch my pick because I'm with you. I'm gonna always side with coaching. And Franklin is a heck of a football coach. He knows his stuff. In situational football, he's been very good so over the years. I'm going with Penn State, even though I hate to say that out loud. But yeah, I'm gonna go with the Lions.
Another offensive struggle in this one. This is number 13 Miami at number 24 Texas A&M, 9 o'clock on ESPN. The Aggies, they lost to App State last week, but they've got a lot of talent, man. I don't know if they can look that bad 2 weeks in a row. Haynes King, the quarterback, has not had a good start to the season. That being said, I'm going to go with Miami. I think it's going to be tough. It's a coin flip for me, but I'm going to go with Miami on the road.
Interesting that you say that. I'm going with A&M simply because I agree. I don't think they're going to look that they're going to play that poorly 2 weeks in a row, and I don't think Miami can go into A&M and beat them at home. So I'm going with Texas A&M.
There you go. And now the game that we are all here for, West Virginia and Towson, 1 o'clock ESPN Plus. Gene, before we get to our pick, let's hear in from Neil Brown on what this team's confidence level is like right now as they sit here 0-2 heading into week 3.
I think that's part of the noise, man. Like everybody wants to focus on the negativity again. Like, and to me, that's it. Like, it's harder for kids than it is for me. Like, I just turn off social media and I'm fine. I feel a hell of a lot better when I don't have it. You know what I mean? So like, it's easier for me, but I'm 42. It's harder for our kids, but that's not the negativity that I necessarily worry about, because you never take criticism from somebody you wouldn't go to for advice. The noise that hurts is man, you all are so close. Like, you could be 2-0. Yeah, we could be, but we're not. You know, and let's focus on why we're not and getting that correct, and let's focus on how we get better moving forward. You know, yeah, we could be sitting here 2-0. You know what I mean? You know, I also could be an NFL player if I was a little faster. You know what I mean? It's kind of what it is.
So there you go. Neil Brown is ignoring the noise and ignoring all the negativity. Does that translate to Saturday against Towson? Does he and his team ignore all that, put those first 2 weeks behind them, lay it to rest, and go out and beat the crap out of Towson? Or Gene, do the Towson Tigers come in and stun the Mountaineers to drop them to 0-3? I'm going West Virginia. 48-13. Only 48, yes. I think they get up big in the first half. Neil Brown wants to see those young guys. I don't think they're going to score a ton of points in the second half. And Towson, like I said, they've got a lot of FBS transfers. They know how to play. They're 2-0. They're a decent FCS program. 48-13 is my pick.
Okay. Obviously, I'm going with our Mountaineers, and since I'm shocked that you threw a score out there. So now I'm gonna have to throw. I'm in the 40s with you. I'm gonna say 45-14.
45-14.
45-14. That's what I'm saying. Let's go Mountaineers.
Hey, I'll just say this: you and I are 0-2 in picking West Virginia games this year, mainly because we picked West Virginia the first 2 games. We get this one wrong, Gene. I don't know. I think there might be a lot of things going on. You may not be able to come on the Mountaineers post-game show on Saturday because you're going to be so bad.
I'm going to tell you right now. Yeah.
It's going to be a fun one. So that's going to do it for the Walkthrough Game Day show. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube at Mountaineers Now. You can follow us on Twitter, Mountaineers Now. Myself at Callihan _ and Eugene at Napoleon _ Eugene. We'll be back here on Saturday after the game for the Mountaineers Now post-game show. We'll also have another episode of Between the Ears on Friday at 6 p.m. So we've got a lot of stuff coming up for you. For Eugene Napoleon, I'm Schuyler Callihan. You've been watching the Walkthrough Game Day show. Until Saturday, take care.